Welcome to Breaking Through with me, Kristen Rao Finkbeiner. We are here at Netroots Nation in New Orleans, recording with leaders from across the country who are coming together to envision a better tomorrow. I'm so glad you're listening, and I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome back to Breaking Through with me, Kristen Rao Finkbeiner. We are in New Orleans at Netroots Nation, and we are meeting with spectacular, inspiring, nation-lifting leaders. We have with us right now Shaunna Thomas, who is the co-founder of the spectacular organization Ultraviolet, and a consultant and a national leader. And we also have with us Angel Padilla, who is with the National Women's Law Center Action Fund. Woo! Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, we are here. We're going to start with Angel.
Okay.
Angel, why should men care about women's issues, care about feminism, care about gender equity and equality?
Yes,
Just an easy one, by the way.
It's it should be easier for a lot of people. I feel like there aren't enough men talking about these issues. When I started at the Law Center Action Fund, I wanted to work there because of the issues. I care about childcare. I care about reproductive rights. I care about our democracy and our courts. Those are all gender equity issues, gender justice issues. And so, if you care about those issues, you care about gender equity. You care about feminism. The problem is that I think a lot of men do not understand that and have trouble sort of connecting the dots sometimes.
Yes, 100%. And Shaunna, you have worked on disinformation, misinformation, and fighting back against the, quote, manosphere, which is purposefully pushing men out of being able to understand why all the policies that Angel just raised actually matter equally to people of all genders. So what do you think it's going to take to have an actual cross-gender conversation in America?
Well, I think, look, the reason disinformation, the reason the manosphere can be as successful as it is, because you have to have, you have to start with people have to be open to the conspiracy. People have to be open to the lie. And the lie is that, women are to blame for everything happening in men's lives that they don't like, right? And I think, there are a couple of things that make that possible. One is that we've been on this huge, once in a millennia change in gender norms and roles that we've been preparing women and girls for decades and not talking to men or boys about really at all, right? So women are ready, men are not. And at the same time, you have this sort of major collapse of social systems because of this late stage capitalism kind of moment that we find ourselves in at this parallel way. So people are struggling, they're looking for someone to blame, and enter the manosphere with a story about women, a story about immigrants, a story about black people, right? A story about anyone but, right, their target audience, right, which is essentially white men, although increasingly men of color too. And I think the challenge here is, one, how do you make sure that people understand that they're being used, right? That they're being lied to, that there's this real set of grievances that we need to be addressing, that they are exploiting, right, for their own personal gain, that isn't going to benefit them at all. And then how do we also take responsibility ourselves for telling stories within our own communities and giving people a sense of hope about what the future can be like and what a feminist future can be like, how that can benefit everybody. So I think we have to both expose the bad actors and do the work on our own side to tell the story that people need to hear about the hopeful future that, they can have if they embrace a feminist policy agenda.
I'm so glad you used the F word. People, feminism is an F word. In fact, I wrote a whole book called The F Word, Feminism in Jeopardy, because it's one of the only words in the English language that does not have a single definition. There's a bazillion different definitions for feminism. It's kind of like whatever side of the street you're walking on that day, you're going to create your own personal definition for feminism. But the dictionary definition, which I love, is the social, political, and economic equality of all genders. It says nothing about women squishing men. And so when I was, writing the book, I have kids, they were like, Mom, what are you writing about? Are you trying to be mean to men? I'm like, no, it says equal. It doesn't say, one gender squishing the other. And the fact of the matter is, when we look at what's happening with the data, we see that women are discriminated against in many sectors of the United States of America more than men. And so, but feminism remains an F word with this assumption that it is about squishing one gender over the other. What is your take on the word feminism?
So it's interesting. I'm glad you said that, because I think this is the other side has gotten so good at when you are striving for equality, that automatically just they're paying this as like it means less for you.
Yeah.
Like equality means less for you, and they've been doing this again, targeting women forever, but also it's been front and center recently. Trans folks and calling for trans rights, immigrant rights, like all of that stuff is. What they're saying is if we give these folks rights, it comes at a cost, and the cost is to you white men, basically. And they've been really successful at tapping into some of this. And I agree with you. And like, again, I'm a straight man working on gender equity, gender justice. And it is, we see and hear this word all the time. It's like, it is hard to define, but at the end of the day, it is that, and people don't seem to understand that. And I think this is an opportunity for us. We were just talking about this on the panel earlier, that, the way that they've been framing this argument is bad. It's fundamentally wrong. And so when it doesn't actually deliver for them, then we can push our agenda, which is, again, it does more for families and people and women than what they're pushing. So I'm hoping that that's where we end up.
Yeah, 100%. You mentioned that we're in late stage capitalism. I think that's really important context for this moment, because in this moment, 72% plus of our GDP is based on consumer spending. And, women and moms make 80% of the consumer spending decisions. So what happens is, and this is important to your point about trying to have people push down other people to stand up, we actually all do better when we're all doing better. Like literally, not only in our hearts, not only in our communities, but we all do better economically in our current economic system when we're all doing better. So if we are pushing down different communities and saying, okay, we're going to kind of use your shoulder to stand up on as we push you underwater, which is what's happening in some communities right now, then we're doing worse. Like even the person pushing down is doing worse. Why do you think that isn't getting through, that we actually all do better when we're all doing better? So stop dividing and, basically assaulting communities of people.
Well, I think it's a little bit baked into our culture, like hierarchies, right? That like some people have to have more than other people for the society. I mean, it's also like a very patriarchal idea, rankings, right? And the thing that's supposed to be so awesome about America is that like wherever you are in that rank, you can always strive for more. You can always go higher. The story has never been because we can all benefit together. The story has always been because you could be on top eventually if you work hard enough, right? I mean, the Europeans actually have like a more egalitarian, right, idea about like people doing better, but like that's just not part of our culture, I think. The other issue though is like it doesn't benefit billionaires.
Yes.
Right? That is the one exception, right? And they are actually in charge, right? They're pulling the strings in every content or every aspect of our society. And I think people are totally awake to that actually right now. But until like we're ready to like a majority of Americans can recognize that an allegedly insurgent, right, like anti-elitist force like Trump is actually just an agent for the billionaire class. Like until everybody sort of understands that and sees that, I think we're going to continue to see this like sort of widening, yawning, right, economic gap between like the rich and the poor, and this collapsing place we seem to be in right now.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that to be unhopeful. I'm just saying like we're not quite there yet, but I think we're kind of on our way.
Yeah, we're on our way. I mean, there are indicators. Somebody who has an actual real gold toilet might not actually be for working families. I'm just saying.
It's just a thought.
If you have a gold toilet, that seems to be a sign blazing in gold that this person is not paying a lot of attention to actual real working families.
Stealing health care for children and spending $200 million on a ballroom in the White House. Like, these are our signs.
Yes, can we talk about that? He just cut health care for 17 million people and is spending $200 million on a ballroom. Apparently, also gold, detecting a theme here. It's like one of those dragons that just, puts gold in their little pile on the side, but doesn't actually, those are our taxpayer dollars. Those aren't for a single person or a single billionaire or a couple billionaires to take. What's your take on this?
We've been saying this campaign we were running is they're robbing us. They're literally robbing families, children's health care, children's nutrition assistance are robbing us, robbing families in order to pay for these things and to give billionaires a $4 trillion tax cut. It's just, it can't be any clearer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's bad.
It's bad.
Yeah,
It's bad.
I do think there's like a huge portion of the base that's still in some denial, but I think like Epstein is creating some cracks, right?
Yeah.
Like the sort of exposure of the inherent corruption in that story. And I think what they are doing to the economy and what they're doing to social service is going to be felt deeply by their own base relatively soon. Now, we can't rest on that. We can't assume that's not inevitable, but it's like, you know, their actions are going to speak louder than their words eventually.
Yeah, and already are. I mean, we're already seeing, you know, the price of eggs has not gone down. Thank you very much. We are not seeing the price of diapers go down. There's actually a diaper crisis in America because people have to buy diapers and send them with their kids to go to childcare, and people can't afford enough of the diapers to send them with their kids to childcare. I mean, it's ridiculous what people are having to deal with right now. What's your take? You have some thoughts.
Look, you know, it's I honestly think of my family, right? And like my mom. My mom is about a year away from retirement, but like, you know, is like worried about like what's going to happen to Social Security, what's going to happen with Medicare, like what's going to happen with just like living expenses, and that's just my like the person close to me, but like that's what everyone is worried about. We actually did a poll, post election poll, and there were a bunch of these, but we did one. And the thing that people, 89%, the thing that we're most worried about is financial security. Financial security. Like, things have gotten worse. They are going to continue to get worse. We are just now seeing some of the increased prices due to tariffs, right? It's going to get worse and worse and worse. And so I think you've been talking about this, but like, we need to make sure that people understand that this is a result of this administration, this Congress, and the things that they're passing. It is not actually making a meaningful difference in the lives of families. And so, I mean, on the one hand, I'm sad that like people are just going to suffer, right? Like, it's not just the kids and the families, but also, by the way, like where this money is actually being spent is on a militarized, you know, country and, you know, troops
Human
in
rights
cities.
abuses.
No more due process, like just kidnapping people. And so that's sad. Like, people are going to suffer, and you're hearing stories, you're seeing them every day, single day. But also, just like your average person who really just what they need is some assistance. They're just not going to get it. It's going to be worse for them. And so, you know, that's we need to do something, and we need to and start by making sure that they understand what's actually happening.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so the first step is getting the real accurate information out about what's happening. We're doing that right now, people. If you're not noticing, we're like totally sharing you the real information. Second step is sharing what people can do. What can people do?
Well, I mean, look, you know, there's a few different ways of thinking about that. There's like the community level, like where you live. There's people who need help. There's people like there's people who are particularly vulnerable, whose like legal status in this country is like on shaky ground, or even not just on shaky ground, but look like it could be on shaky ground. And you have like those of us with privilege in those situations have a role to play in stopping that from happening. I think at like another level, there's like just we have to recognize, depending on where you live, you may not have a lot of leverage. You may not have any representation in government that wants to listen to you. So what's your job? It's to make it difficult for them to do theirs, right? So that's partly about calling, telling them what to do. Partly it's about like just exposing. It's talking to your other friends. It's sharing content, exposing what they're doing. And it's participating in things like a Tesla takedown protest, right? It's like recognizing that there are people in power who are weak right now and joining together with other people in effective campaigns to make it harder for them to leverage the power they have until we regain the leverage that we need to move the policy agenda that you all are advocating for. So,
Through voting. Make sure you're registered to vote. What's your take on what can people do?
So it doesn't matter where you live. There's something you can do, whether it's locally, focus on local, you know, either organizing, getting connected with your local community, local elected officials, but also, you know, I've seen this question a lot, like, what if my member of Congress is good? What if I have a Democratic senator or Democratic member of Congress and they vote the right way? Chances are they're not doing enough. They could be doing more, right? Are they actually speaking up on the issues that you care about? Are they actually being more aggressive and like being more intentional, deliberate about what they're doing? Or are they just showing up, taking a vote and going home? They can be doing more, chances are. And you also have Democrats who are not actually taking good votes. We had a bunch of Democrats earlier this year vote for a bad crypto bill that basically let Trump continue to, you know, take money, take bribes from the crypto industry, and you had Democrats voting for it. Chances are your member of Congress can still be better, but they need to hear from you. And I know it's a lot of work, like getting going and making calls, showing up locally is a lot of work, and people have busy lives with work and other responsibilities, but it really does matter. And so those are the things that people should be doing, and we're seeing a lot more of it. I know you've been talking about how your base is also way more active right now, but that's the kind of stuff we need to see.
And it makes a difference. I mean, I love what you just said. Like, when you are calling a Democrat or a Republican member of Congress, it helps them either be more of a champion or helps them change their minds. So we hear from members of Congress themselves all the time that it makes a difference.
Yeah, it does.
So in closing, we want to thank you for being on. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for being at Netroots. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So thrilled to be here.
We're going to take a quick break, but don't go away. We'll be right back with our next guest, Heather Booth, who's going to talk about hope, change, history, and our future. We'll be back in a quick moment. Welcome to Breaking Through with me, Kristen Rao-Finkbeiner, powered by Moms Rising. We are joined by one of the biggest, best, boldest longtime leaders in America, Heather Booth, who has persisted and insisted on change for decades and amassed an enormous amount of victories. Right now, she's with the Battleground Alliance, but she's also brought forward so many wins. So we're going to talk about hope and change today with the amazing Heather Booth. Welcome, Heather.
I'm so glad to be here. And one of the things you should say, if there's a part of an introduction, is that I am a great fan of Kristen Rao-Finkbeiner, and as well as of Moms Rising. I am a mom. I'm rising, and also you're really setting so much of the country on fire and into energy, greater energy than we've seen actually in quite a while, because there's so much to fight back for.
There is so much to fight for, and I think this is really important. You have been working in politics, in organizing, and change for a long time. And some people are like, whoa, this is heavy. This is big. I'm going to give up. What gives you hope? What keeps you going? What advice do you have for people?
Several ways to answer this question. The main thing that gives me hope is the vitality that you bring, that those listening, those watching right now bring. It's that we have the people power. It wasn't demonstrated in the last election. We came very close, just a little over 1% difference between the candidates. But some weren't engaged. Some thought maybe there was a hope of a different change. But now that is changing, and people are coming out. You see it in the demonstrations, but more than that, you see it in the organizing that is going on. People voted for lower prices, but now we're seeing what you've told us to call it, Trumpflation.
Yes.
And it is, we've got to expose that. People thought, well, maybe my life could be made better, but in fact, it's being made worse. They're taking away our health care. They're taking away our education. They're taking away our democracy. But if we organize, we will change this world. And when we've organized before, we have changed this world.
Yes. Yes. What are some of your favorite wins? Because in moments like these, when it's really bad, Republicans and Donald Trump just cut 17 million people off of healthcare, just cut SNAP, which is access to nutrition, just did some very damaging changes to our K through 12 education system. And the list goes on. It's 900 pages of badness in a list of bills. The HR one is terrible. We need them to repeal it. But what are some of the wins that you've seen happen due to people raising their voices, due to people getting engaged, that can keep us inspired to keep going in this hard time?
Well, I started working for social change in the civil rights movement when I was about, maybe 13 years old. I think I was at my first demonstration. And at 18, I joined the Freedom Summer Project that many in the audience, many who are watching, have heard about. It gained notoriety because 3 of the young volunteers, Andrew Goodman, James Chaney, and Michael Joyner, were killed at the hands of the Klan when there was a recruitment of Northern volunteers, and I was one, to support the very courageous work of African Americans in Mississippi who are struggling for dignity and respect and the right to vote. But against enormous odds, when it seemed it was almost impossible, people were being killed and it didn't matter. People weren't even paying attention. Within a year, we won a Voting Rights Act, and we won it because people not only turned out, as we're doing now, but they organized. They talked to people one-on-one at their doors. They listened as well as proposed and recruited. And addressing the problems that people cared about We built substantial organization and then spread the message around the country as Moms Rising does. And so I learned that when we organize, we have changed this world, and we can change this world when the odds seem even greater than they are now. Another example, I went back to my campus in 1965 in Chicago, and a friend told me his sister was pregnant, nearly suicidal, and wanted an abortion. In 1965, 3 people talking about an abortion was a conspiracy to commit a very serious felony. Though I'm not quite sure I knew it then, I didn't really know what to do. But I said I would help, simply as a moral action, against the odds, because at that time there were septic abortion wards, and I'm told 3 people a week were dying. I don't know if those are the figures, but I was told were dying from harm they did to themselves or that someone else did to them when abortion was illegal in Chicago. So I found a doctor through the Medical Committee for Human Rights, the Civil Rights Movement, Dr. T.R.M. Howard, a name many people may not know, but a great hero. He provided the procedure, and I thought that was it. But word spread. I made another connection, and word spread, and so many people were calling. I set up a system. We called the system Jane because it wasn't legal at the time. And the women who I recruited into Jane themselves performed 11,000 abortions before Roe. And we won Roe when it seemed impossible, when it was illegal, when you could go to jail for a long time. But we won because people organized. And so we should take heart that when we organize, as Moms Rising does so wonderfully, we have changed this world, and we will change this world.
Our listeners, I'm sure, are so inspired by hearing about those wins, about those victories, about the bravery, about the hope, about the change, and are probably wondering also, how do you define organizing? Because I know everybody wants to do more organizing, but not everybody knows what it is. So for listeners out there who are paying attention right now, what would your advice be about organizing? What should people do? What are the action steps for starting to be an organizer?
Organizers organize organizations.
And birthday parties.
Organizers.
I like to say, like, if you can organize a birthday party, you can,
Absolutely.
you know, it's doable. But go ahead.
I say in some ways I learned organizing from the Girl Scouts. I had to sell cookies door to door, and so I talked to people, and they decided to buy the cookies. I said, oh, that's part of organizing. It is engaging people about the concerns of their lives and bringing them together around common concerns to win a change that will improve all of our lives. It's increasing our power. Now, mobilizing is showing up, is coming out. It's the No King's Day. It's the various demonstrations, and they are very important. And organizing goes one step further. It's recruiting others, engaging others, and building for the long term. I often encourage people to think about 4 M's, 4 of the letter M. The first M is members. How many people will you recruit? And even those who are listening in now, write down the names. You're listening in. Can you recruit someone else? Who are you going to recruit? Your daughter, your mother, your sister, your friend, your neighbor, someone in your garden club, in your book club, someone in your workplace? Who else will you recruit? What's their name? How would you listen to their concerns so you can bring them in? Members, we need to increase our numbers.
Yes.
Second is message. What do we say? Where will we say it? You're doing it now by this cast that you're doing. But we all can do it. We can do it on social media. We can do it in our conversations with others. We can do it in our community and family discussions. Message. The third is the key one is movement.
Yep.
We have to build for the future and bring people out. And so I'm particularly grateful to Moms Rising for the way in which you build members, message, and movement, the ways in which you change the world.
Well, we're more grateful to you for leading the way, for teaching, for sharing, for leading and lifting. And speaking of lifting, you are now involved in a new spectacular organizing and mobilizing project, the Battleground Alliance. What is that?
It's an effort to work in 38 marginal congressional districts to take back Congress for the will of the American public, and to build on both what exists there and to expand it and promote it so that we can really defend and advance people's lives and build for the long haul.
Mm-hmm.
And we look forward to working with all of you. We also have an accountability project this summer.
Ooh.
That's on a nonpartisan basis in a number of other districts, about 46, where we will hold those members accountable who voted against our interests or elevate those who are voting for our health care, our nutrition, our education. And we are so glad to be partners with Moms Rising in this important effort.
It is so hard for many people who are busy raising their family, going to work, trying to have some time for themselves, and dealing with rising costs all at the same time. It's so hard for people to have time to be engaged in politics. And so I love that you are making it easy for regular people to be engaged. And I want to share with our listeners a project that I shared with you, which is our Trumpflation project, which we are just starting. And so we're asking people if they're in the grocery store and they see a price of anything on the shelf, eggs, diapers, you name it, hamburgers, anything on the shelves that makes them go, what? That costs so much more than it used to take a picture of it take a picture of the price tag and then to post it on social media with hashtag Trumpflation. And
I'm ready to take out my camera now and look for those prices and post on Trumpflation. I love the idea. I love the project.
Isn't it fun?
And Kristen, I truly love you. We've been partners for many years. And for all of you who are watching, so glad you're part of the Moms Rising movement. And together, when we organize, and I also say with love at the center, when we organize with love at the center, we'll change this world.
And we are changing the world. That's the beautiful thing that I love about the stories that you share about the victories. And we have some other recent victories. The last time that Trump was in office, his first term, we actually were able to save healthcare. He tried to overturn the entire Affordable Care Act, get rid of healthcare for millions and millions of people. But we rose up, we shared our stories, we held town halls, we did everything, and we were able to save it not one, not two times, but 50 times. Together we were able to save that. That's because of the organizing that you're talking about, with love, with compassion, with relentlessness.
There's so many things that we have won, but now so much is at risk. We do need to both show up and mobilize. We need to not comply and not cooperate, to show that courage itself is an important power, and we need to build for the upcoming elections and take back Congress for the will of the American public. This is not what people voted for.
Nope.
To raise their prices, to harm their families, to take away our health care. And together,
yes, truly,
we will win.
Truly. Thank you so much for being on, Heather Booth. Thank you for the inspiration. Thank you for the hope. Thank you for the leadership. Thank you for the training on organizing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Mwah. Thank you. We're going to take a quick break. Next up, we're talking about the power of the Latina vote. And we have some important news for you. We'll be back in a quick flash. Welcome to Breaking Through with me, Kristen Raufinkbeiner, powered by Moms Rising. And we're also this week powered by Netroots Nation in New Orleans, where we are recording this week's show. We have Yadira Sanchez of Poder Latinx. Woo! Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Kristen, for having me.
I'm so excited that you're on. We just did a panel where we were talking about the power of care policies, paid family medical leave, child care, health care, fair pay, to help save our democracy and actually to help stop fascism. When we're talking about that, what are the things that you would love listeners, the audience, to know about what Poder Latinx is doing related to care?
No, thank you for having me. We have a campaign called Cuidar es Poder. Care is power. We know the importance that care plays in everyone's life throughout our entire lives, from birth through getting older, in between. So we know care is a very important issue, but it's more than an issue. It's really a way of life. It's very personal. It's very tied to our economics, also our health care. So we work with communities across the country in 7 key states, in Arizona, in Florida, in Georgia, North Carolina, and of course the beautiful state of Washington, California, and Texas. And we work with the Latino communities, primarily in heavy concentrated communities of Latino voters, where we engage with folks year round to make sure that we are serving the community, but working on issues that impact our lives. And we know care is important. It impacts everyone's lives.
Everyone, absolutely everyone has needed or received care. There's nobody I know that has never gotten sick and needed to go to the doctor at some point or another, whether it's get stitches or, for some other health crisis or strep throat or, you name it. Everybody's had to go to the doctor. Yet, we just had Republicans in Congress and Donald Trump eviscerate our Medicaid. They cut 17 million people off Medicaid. They rolled back the Affordable Care Act. It is horrible. What impact is that going to have on communities and the communities that you work with in America?
It's very horrible. The impact is going to be felt, is going to be devastated. People will die. They depend on Medicaid as their primary health insurance provider. We know that there's going to be elderly, there's going to be a lot of families, working families, that won't be able to afford health care. They're going to be bargaining, like when to go to the doctor, when to get that help. We also know other benefits like SNAP, other key benefits that are for low income working families are also on the chopping block, or they got chopped. And in the contrary, this bill also gives millions and millions of dollars to ICE and to deportation enforcement, which is horrible how these funds are being utilized. So it's definitely going to be devastated, but I would say we're not powerless. The August recess is in motion, and we're in the month of August. It's Civic Health Month. It's also August recess when our representatives come back to our district. So it's very important for folks who are listening, who are upset, and it's our job as well to facilitate those conversations, to talk to their elected officials, to hold them accountable, to ask them why they did this, because a lot of folks are up for re-election, and we have the powers to elect champions in those roles that are really going to stand up for our benefits, for our best interests.
150%. And polls are showing that pretty much everybody, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, Libertarian, Green Party, support care policies like health care, child care, paid family medical leave, and importantly, fair pay. Yet, Republicans in Washington, D.C. and Donald Trump are out of step with their own constituents, which means everybody call your U.S. Senator and tell them to reverse the cuts. And then also, as you just heard suggested, which I also suggest, make sure you're registered to vote and make a plan to vote, because we need to vote out people who aren't uplifting our contributions, our needs, and the policies that support our economy. Speaking of policies that support our economy, there are a ton of myths right now in the United States of America. And they're not just myths. There's a lot of intentional disinformation, a lot of intentional misinformation, and we see Donald Trump spreading misinformation actually on a daily basis. When we're talking about these policies, what are the biggest myths that need to be busted?
Definitely one of the biggest myths is that Republican Party is for working families. That's clearly not the case. We saw politics really take the lead over the well-being of a lot of constituents, and a lot of, especially in Republican districts, that we know that they were opposed to it. And instead of listening to the constituents, they play politics. And I believe that's one of the biggest myths we have to debunk, is that they're for working families. And then also that these benefits, the immigrants, if for example folks in mixed status households accessing these benefits, they're taking away from the American people. They're not contributing. That's also a myth. Immigrants pay taxes. They contribute trillions of dollars to our economy. They deserve to have these benefits that are a lifeline to our families, especially folks that are undocumented. I think even mixed status families often get denied these benefits. So that's another one. And of course, that only care policies only benefit women. That's also not true. They benefit the entire family, communities, I would add, because they're there's more men accessing paid leave that we've seen in recent polls, recent data in many states that have parental leave for both parents. So and also extending the definition of family as a whole. So there's a lot of myths, a lot of disinformation, but the reason for it is because care is a winnable issue. It's an issue that everyone wants to see. We were one of the few countries in the world that don't provide pay leave, that don't provide these benefits. Like, we see them all the time in our community. Folks always remind us that in their country, in Latin America, they had pay leave. They had parental leave. All of these benefits that we're fighting for here, they are amazed to find out that we don't have them, that we're still not there yet.
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought up that studies show immigrants are paying way more into taxes than are taking out. So it's a net gain to our economy, to our tax base, everything. And so sometimes we see these myths that it's the opposite, perpetuated particularly by Republicans. Those myths are wrong. I just have to back you up here. Those myths are totally wrong. Every single economist, every single math equation shows that actually immigrants are contributing much more than are taking out. And so that, I think, is so important to put out there. I had to double down on that one. The other one that I love that you raised is about people of all genders both needing and taking the care policies, like paid family medical leave after a new baby arrives. In particular, one of the things I think is interesting is that everything is interrelated between these policies. And at the same time, right now in the United States of America, being a mom is a greater predictor of wage and hiring discrimination than gender. And because of structural racism, we see increased wage hits on Latina moms and Black moms and Native American moms. But there is a solution. And the solution is to have these care policies passed and people of all genders take them. So in other countries which have paid family medical leave in place, they actually found, interestingly, I'm getting back to your point, that if you have the dads taking paid family medical leave, then it is the most quick way to actually narrow the wage gaps between moms and non-moms. So they give, in many European countries, actually a bonus amount of time off to the families to incentivize the dads to take paid family medical leave if the dads aren't taking it. And that actually is to help lower the wage gaps and to help boost the economy. Because if we had pay parity, since, we make the majority of consumer purchasing decisions, our whole economy would be lifted. So I wanted to double tap that one because I was like, that one is good.
That's
People
right.
don't realize that there's multiple solutions at play when you pass these policies, including narrowing the just awful wage gap. So I don't know. My heart gets pitter-patter when I get to talk about this stuff because I feel like we don't get to talk about it enough. Why do you think that in America we don't talk about child care, paid family medical leave, health care, and with an expectation that everybody should have it in the same way that other countries do?
I think it's like one of our principles, ideals as American. You think of freedom and liberty, but we don't think of care. We've become the society where we're just okay with working nonstop, and that's like hard work. It's very tied to capitalism, actually, but we don't value care, joy, taking care of ourselves, healing. That's not one of the values we see. Where in other countries, there is, in other cultures as well, there is great value on care. And it's seen as, for example, in Latin America, elderly care is very ingrained in the culture. It's very ingrained in a lot of government policy, because there's just not that expectation that you're going to put your your loved one into a nursery home or elderly living, you live with them until they pass away. So it's kind of like expected upon. It's like already engraved in your culture, and also in Europe, right? They value the bond between a new arrival baby and the parents. It's not something like you just want to get rid of it in 2 weeks and just go back to work. So I think it goes back to our ideals, like what our ideals as Americans, as our founding. It's not just freedom, it's also care. 100%. Care should be at the center.
100% agree. And listeners, we're talking about other countries compared to the United States of America, because actually, in fact, the United States is one of only 6 countries in the world without paid family medical leave when a new baby arrives. So we are out of step. And when we look at healthcare, we're the only industrialized nation where we don't have some form of universal health care, and actually where maternal mortality is going up, not down, and black women are dying 3 times as often as childbirth as white women, which is not okay. So we have some fixing to do, some solutions to move forward, and we have the solutions. We have the solutions. And so we want to make sure all of our members of Congress are listening. We want to make sure everybody's coming together. What's your advice on tactics to make change?
We definitely... you said it earlier, I alluded to it, but if you're not registered, you have to register. We are seeing right now a completely different type of government, authoritarian government. We're seeing a lot of things that I know a lot of Americans are just not okay with, from the federal employee layoffs to the mass raids to what we just saw with this big ugly bill, the passage of this big ugly bill. But we are not powerless. We have to take action, harness that unfortunate pain and anger into action. So we need you all that are listening to register, to make sure your loved ones are registered, to make sure you participate. There are local elections happening this year in many states and cities, local elections across the country. And those are the ones that have the most impact on your daily life. So registered, and get your loved ones to register and go out and vote every single election.
I agree. I agree 1,000 bazillion times. I made up a number. I agree so much. How can people get involved and support Poder Latinx?
Yes, we welcome you to join our campaigns, our Cuidar es Poder. We have many other campaigns. We running year-round voter engagement programs. Visit our website, poderlatinx.org. Also follow us on social media. All our handles are Poder Latinx. So yeah, join the movement, because we need more folks.
We have just about a minute left. What's bringing you hope that might bring other people hope?
Well, I've been holding this hope in my belly. It's a fire in my belly. I'm 8 months pregnant, and being a mom, joining the mom club brings me a lot of hope. But also seeing this wave of young people, the energy we're seeing, the organic mobilization, folks engaging for the first time. They've never engaged politically. That gives me hope. Folks that are usually outside of our circle, right? They're not thinking themselves as progressives. They care. Like my brother's in the military. All of a sudden he's engaged and his friends are engaged, and that's a big deal.
Well, thank you so much for being on. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for being on the panel. Thank you for being here in New Orleans. Thank you for being at Netroots. Thank you for leading the nation forward. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you everyone that's watching.
Thank you. We're going to take a quick break. Don't go away. Next up, we're talking about family values at work in our country and who's fighting for us and what we can do to build a better country. We'll be back in a quick moment. Welcome to Breaking Through with me, Kristen Rao-Finkbeiner, powered by Moms Rising. We have an amazing, spectacular, nation-lifting, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful leader for a guest today, Carol Joyner of Family Values at Work Action Fund. Woo! Welcome, Carol.
Hey, thanks, Kristen.
I'm so excited that you're here at Netroots Nation in New Orleans, where we are taping.
NOLA.
Yes, it's wonderful. And we just did a panel on care and how care can actually help win elections, help stop fascism, help save our democracy. So for our listeners, what is CARE?
Well, CARE is many things. It's a policy. It's a way to approach policy. It's paid family and medical leave. It's paid sick and safe days. It's child care. It's elder care. It's abortion care, right? It's all of that. It's disability care. And it's also just for me, and for many people, it's a way of life. And so it is so many things, and it touches us. in so many different ways. That's why it's probably a very valuable tool to think about with regard to voting, winning our democracy, breaking through to the other side.
Yeah, and when we're talking about breaking through to the other side, one of the things that has always been so interesting to me is that Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, all kinds of people actually support and want the care policies you were just naming: child care, paid family medical leave, health care, like 86% of Trump voters. Yet in Washington, D.C., we have the Republican leadership and Donald Trump out of step with their own constituents, and they're actually voting and have voted recently to cut health care by cutting Medicaid and the ACA, to cut access to child care, to cut all of these policies. What's going on with the Republicans in Washington, D.C. being out of step with actually Republicans and Democrats around the country who live in the home districts? What's happening?
So for at least 20 years, Democrats, Republicans, Independents have been saying at the polls and in polling data that they support these policies, and not by small numbers. We're talking like 90% of Democrats support these care policies, and 80% of Independents, and 70, sometimes 75% of Republicans support these policies. So you are absolutely right about that. But look, it's not a secret. The Republican Party has not been listening to their base, nor have they been accountable to their base for a very long time, right? They are accountable to the donors. They are accountable to the billionaires. That is why they are more interested in giving a $4.5 trillion tax cut to billionaires and corporations in this last H.R. 1, or big ugly bill, right? Then they were accountable to holding on to Medicaid, making sure everyone has access to food and, and housing, and the planet is, we're going to be able to contribute to climate mitigation issues. So it is not a secret. They've been voting against their base for a very long time because they want to have money, and they get that money from billionaires and corporations so that they can get reelected. They are choosing themselves, their jobs, over the people and what they actually need in order to thrive.
And this gives an opening for a leverage point for change, because people actually still have to vote to put people into office.
Exactly.
So what do you think needs to happen with that?
Well, I was just upstairs listening to Beto O'Rourke talk about the fight in Texas and how, because they know it's an opening for change, they're trying to rig the rules, right? So right now they're trying to, institute gerrymandering in states where they can in order to ensure that in the midterm elections, right? And we all know this. It's a bait and switch game. In the midterm elections, they're able to stack the deck with gerrymandering and get elected back to the House, back to the Senate, even though the polling numbers on them have never been lower. And so what we need to do is to understand that. And we need to make the key issues that people care about and talk about each and every day, the primary issues at the doors, on the phones, in our storytelling. All of it. We need to talk about paid family and medical leave. We need to talk about care as an antidote to fascism and tyranny. We need to talk about how, if we break down the silos that they have inflicted upon us for generations, if we break down those silos, we actually can see each other as humans and deliver the services and the goods that we know that we need. And so I think that's the conversation, and that we're paying for, right? And that's the conversation that we need to have. We also need to look at what happened over the last couple of weeks with the passage of H.R. 1 and make sure that we hang that around their throats like a very tight, I'm going to say another thing, but I'll just say like a very tight necktie.
I mean,
really tight.
That bill was terrible. What
Horrible.
are the terriblest things that you want everybody to know about in that bill that Republicans and Donald Trump just passed? By the way, we need to say who passed it, because sometimes people say, well, Congress just passed this bill. Well, no, that's not what just happened.
No.
Republicans rolled Democrats who were opposed to the bill. Democrats were opposed to the bill.
Yep.
It was Republican
All
leadership.
Democrats voted against it.
Yes, and it's a very bad bill. So it was Republican leadership and Donald Trump, the person who's in the Oval Office right now who pushed through the very bad bill. What are the worst things in that bill that everyone should know about? Because some of them are going to be delayed in implementation, which they did on purpose to try to blame on the Democrats. No, we are not going to let that happen. What happened?
We're talking about 16 to 20 million people losing their health care, either through Medicaid or through Medicare expansion and ACA. People are going to see their ACA go up, not in 2 years, like in the next 6 months. Their ACA is going to hit a new high in January. We also saw, a huge gutting of the SNAP benefits that people need in order to put food on the table. We're talking about also after funding inside of schools for, and Meals on Wheels and kids having food during the summer and when schools are closed. We're talking about people, literally more people, and we have a hunger issue in this country now, more people going hungry. We're also talking about ending any semblance of mitigation of climate change. All of the policies that Biden put in place and that we fought for in 2020, since 2020, right? All of the support that we would get for, electric vehicles and all of those climate mitigation programs are going to be gone. We're talking about significant loss of jobs, and we saw all of that in the jobs report, because people are concerned that with these cuts, they have to preemptively lay people off, right? Not to mention all of the layoffs that have happened already by this really dangerous government that we're living under. So the bill itself is a layer on top of what's already been happening since January 20th. And we need to be able to tell that story and let the public know that the pain that they're feeling, whether it's at the grocery store or with the child care costs or with, not having access to health care. My parents were both on Medicare. And Medicare is significantly threatened as a result of this bill as well. And my parents would not have, had the health care that they had. My mother would not have, she had to eventually go on Medicaid because she had Alzheimer's. And so we had to spin down, she had to become Medicaid eligible, which is how most people with Alzheimer's survive inside of an institution. And all of that money is going to be threatened, right? So we're talking about rural hospitals and nursing homes, and even your average hospital, whether it's rural or not, is going to suffer because significant portions of that funding are funded by Medicaid. We're talking about 41% of all the births in this country are funded by Medicaid. What are people going to do? And we can't wait until it happens. We can use this opportunity, Christian, to turn back the clock and say to people, this is about to happen. This is the impact that it's going to have on your lives. Let's vote and make sure that we can repeal this bill. That's our goal, to let people know and to repeal. And I don't think it's a hard messaging. People are not stupid, and they are paying attention.
So people, call your members of Congress, say stop the cuts, repeal H.R. 1. It's going to do all of the bad things that Carol just named. This thing was like over 900 pages of bad ideas long. It was not a short list of bad ideas. It is a long list of bad ideas. And another bad idea that was in there, in addition to the ones that you just raised, that a lot of people don't know about, is it implemented a voucher program for our national public schools. So there is this theme here for listeners and the audience to know, which is that we fund, with our taxpayer dollars, the public schools. We fund healthcare access. This is a priority of the people of our nation, to be able to see a doctor, go to school, basic human rights, right? Which most other nations have. I mean, we're not an anomaly in having these. In fact, we have less than most other nations. Most nations that are industrialized nations have universal health care, and we don't even have that yet. So we're cutting...
Most have paid family and medical leave.
Yes, and so we're cutting below what most other nations even have as the floor to start. So anyway, that's a whole other story, because I wish that we were fighting for paid family medical leave for all, and we still are. But in this battle in universal health care. But instead we're fighting to stop the cuts that happened to programs that weren't even fully formed yet.
That's right.
And so that, I think, is important. And we're stopping the pulling out of funds that are our taxpayer funds to go into the pockets of billionaires. That gets us back to the school voucher thing. So what passed in this bill also was the ability of school vouchers for private schools, which will suck the money that is much needed money out of public schools and push it into private pockets for their own personal gain. We saw policies like this implemented in places like Florida, and what happened was elementary schools, middle schools, high schools even closing down because there was like a vacuum of public funds into private profit pockets. So that's in there too. I just had to add that.
No, but
bad.
But also there are a number of things in the bill that they want to message as good for working people, right?
Yeah,
they want to be able to check the working people's box. They want to check the women's box.
Mm-hmm.
So they pass these tax credits for paid leave and for child care. And most of that benefits people who are very high income, or it benefits corporations. Do not be fooled. People, you have to figure the messaging out so people are not fooled. They will claim that they have done paid family and medical leave in this bill, and what they did was to give corporations that are already providing paid leave a big tax break for the money that they're spending. And most people are not going to be covered by any of that.
No.
And so there's also there's a bunch of little things in there. So I do think that we have to be aware of how they're going to message the damages inside of this bill and try to make it spin and seem like they've done something to help us, when they, again, over and over again, have only helped their billionaire donors and corporations that help them all the time.
So everybody, make that call to your members of Congress. Tell them repeal H.R. 1, stop the cuts. And how can people get involved with Family Values at Work?
People can go to familyvaluesatwork.org, actually familyvalues.org, and sign up to become a member and to get more information. And we're in 16 states around the country. I'm not going to name all of those states, but, find one of our network partners on our website, and you can just join one of those groups. We are deeply engaged in, civic engagement and during election times. We want to get the CARE vote out, and we need everyone's help to do that, because we know that care is the message. How we care for ourselves, how we care for the least among us, the children, the elderly, how we care for our communities is what really is going to break through and help people to understand that we can make a change and we can be the difference.
And that set of policy is also a vision for a better tomorrow for everyone.
Yes.
So I love this. Everybody get involved with Family Values at Work. Stay involved. Support. Don't give up. We can build a better tomorrow together. And also fight loneliness. Also fight fascism.
Yes.
Also save democracy. All these things can happen. So get involved with Family Values at Work. Thank you so much, Carol.
Thank you, Kristen. Good to see you.
You too. Thank you. Well, that's it for our show today. Thanks so much for tuning in as we are coming to you directly from Netroots Nation in New Orleans. And we need to close the show with the most boring disclaimer in the history of the planet Earth. Thanks for bearing with us. Here goes. Views expressed on this show are those of the individual speakers and should not be attributed to Moms Rising, to this station, or to any news or social media service that may disseminate a recording of this show to the public or to any segment of the public. Boom. We'll catch you next week.